everyone, Future Kate here. Before we begin watching, we just wanted to let you know that at the time we recorded this video, it did come out a little bit longer than we intended it to be. However, we did not want to sacrifice the kind of quality, depth, and detail that went into the making of this video for you. So what you're about to watch is going to be a part 1, part 2 is going to be on the way, so make sure you're subscribed and you have that notification bell on so you can be in the know and ready for when that second video does come out. Alright, back to the video. We hope you enjoy. There's not a single person who, at least at some point in their life, doesn't think about what it would be like to win the lottery. However, in hindsight, there are sometimes people who maybe should not have won, probably for their own good. Most surprisingly, or not, nearly 1/3 of all lottery players end up going bankrupt after realizing that their lottery winnings are not a bottomless pit of wealth.
70% of all lottery winners will be dead broke within 3 years of the big win. So the most important thing to do is not spend your money like a drunken sailor.
Some lucky lottery winners aren't really lucky at all. Some might have relatives coming out of the woodwork clamoring for their share. Others might be falling into a shady trap disguised as a business deal. Some tragic stories might even involve threats of kidnapping or murder. But really, sometimes the antagonists are the lottery winners themselves. We did some digging on some of the most infamous lottery players who got mixed up in some of the most scandalous lottery fallouts. Here are our 10 picks for this list in no particular order. Our first pick, William Bud Post III. William Post III is the classic lottery player who wins it big and through uncontrollable spending ends up going broke years later. This is probably the most common type of person we envision when we think of infamous lottery players. For Post, his huge $16.2 million win should have been great karma for the rough childhood he endured. When he was 8 years old, his father left him in an orphanage after his mother died, and from then on he had a rather nomadic life as a young adult, never owning a car or a home and surviving on disability payments. He had a variety of odd jobs. A spray painter for pipelines, a cook, a truck driver for carnivals and circuses. At some point he served a 28-day jail sentence for passing bad checks. As for how he got his $16.2 million win, he pawned a ring, one of his very few possessions, for $40 and took an arguably stupid risk that actually did pay off and changed his life forever. With just $2.48 left in his bank account, Post ended up winning a $16.2 million jackpot from the Pennsylvania lottery in 1988. Sadly, this miracle was very short-lived. 2 weeks after receiving his first annual payment of $500,000, he blew through 2/3 of it by purchasing a restaurant in Florida, a used car lot and its fleet, and even buying an airplane despite not even having a pilot's license. He fell victim to reckless spending habits, and within just 3 months, he was $500,000 in debt. Even worse, his brother hired a hitman to kill him and his sixth wife, but thankfully he was found out and arrested. Post wasn't exactly street smart either. His relatives convinced him to invest in some pretty terrible business ideas. Finally, his former landlady and supposedly girlfriend sued him on the grounds that he originally agreed to share the prize winnings if he won. She ended up winning her court claim, but he did not have the funds to pay. He refused to hand over one of the annual payments to settle the case. As a result, he filed for bankruptcy and his lottery payouts were frozen. In the end, he was able to salvage about $2.6 million and get out of debt temporarily by selling off his deteriorating Pennsylvania mansion for $65,000 and auctioning the remaining 17 annual lottery payments. But what would you know? While he used the money to pay off debts, he spent nearly all the profits worth $2.65 million on a multitude of other things, including 2 TVs, a computer, a camper, 3 cars, a truck, 2 Harley-Davidson motorcycles, 2 more homes, and a $260,000 sailboat moored in Mississippi that he planned on using to start a fishing business. Here is where his story peters out. He was eventually caught and arrested by law enforcement on that very same boat in 1998 after he failed to surrender for a 6 to 24-month jail sentence for an assault conviction that happened 6 years prior. The crime? He fired a shotgun at a debt collector who had come to his mansion to collect a car repair debt. He appealed but without success. After serving his sentence, he returned to back where he was before winning the lottery, living on disability payments. Everybody dreams of winning money, but nobody realizes the nightmares that come out of the woodwork or the problems. Post said in 1993, "I was much happier when I was broke." In 2006, Post died of respiratory failure at the age of 66, survived by a 7th wife and 9 kids from a previous marriage. Number 2. Andrew Jack Whittaker. It's really honestly a sad story about a huge win and the loss of his daughter and granddaughter. To the very end, he wished he had torn that lottery ticket up so that he could have prevented any of this misfortune from ever happening. Andrew Whittaker won the $315 million Powerball jackpot in December 2002, the largest ever jackpot ever awarded to a single ticket at the time. He was actually very wealthy at the time that he won. He was worth about $17 million. He had worked his way up from poverty to owning a contracting company in West Virginia. Whittaker actually had very good intentions after winning the record-breaking jackpot. He paid a 10% portion of the winnings directly to Christian charities. He donated $14 million to his Jack Whittaker Foundation, which primarily helps Christian charities and provides scholarships to members in Mount Hope, West Virginia. Then he gave a $123,000 house, a new Dodge Ram truck, and $50,000 in cash to the woman who sold him the winning ticket at a convenience store. However, Whittaker was riddled with personal and legal troubles that, combined with a drinking problem and a tendency to visit strip clubs, led to a downward turn. He also kept huge amounts of cash on him at all times wherever he went, and somehow word got around that he did this. 8 months after winning the jackpot, thieves stole a mind-boggling $545,000 from his car in a strip club parking lot while he was inside. Not even a year later, another set of thieves stole $200,000 in cash from his car. Fortunately, the $200,000 was recovered, but the $545,000 was not. On top of this, people looking to gain access to his deep pockets slammed his company with frivolous lawsuits, costing him millions of dollars in legal fees. In 2007, Whittaker had reported that thieves had drained his bank account. He allegedly went broke after losing a lawsuit, and he was also sued by Caesars Atlantic City Casino for bouncing checks worth $1.5 million to cover his gambling losses. Sadly, robbers and legalities were not the worst thing to happen to him. He loved his granddaughter Brandy, and loved spoiling her at that. He gifted her 4 cars and gave her a massive allowance, which actually backfired because it attracted the wrong kind of attention. In 2004, his granddaughter's boyfriend died of a drug overdose in Whittaker's home. Just 3 months later, his granddaughter met the sad same fate, and although her body was found dumped outside of a van, her cause of death was deemed undetermined. 5 years later, her mother, Whittaker's daughter, died. Her cause of death deemed also undetermined with no foul play involved. In the end, Whittaker's wife divorced him, and he came to the conclusion that no amount of money could replace family. In July 2020, Whittaker passed away at age 72 after battling a long illness. Number 3. Billy Bob Harrell Jr., a Texan who claimed that winning the lottery was the worst thing to ever happen to him. Harrell won the $31 million Texas Lotto jackpot in June 1997 after being nearly broke with a wife and 3 kids to support. He took his payout as an annuity, and the first payment of $1.24 million was absolute bliss. He quit his job at Home Depot, he took his family on vacation to Hawaii, and he splurged on cars and houses for friends and family alike. He didn't skimp on giving back either. He donated tens of thousands of dollars to his church and donated 480 turkeys to the poor. But all of his spending attracted the wrong kind of attention that you positively do not want. He was forced to change his phone number after receiving constant demands for handouts. He also wasn't very street smart in how he handled his money either. He lost a good portion of his lottery winnings when he entered a deal with a shady company that traded his annual checks for lump sum payouts. Finally, he and his wife Barbara Jean went through a pretty painful divorce. Family relationships became really strained after dealing with the stresses and fallout of winning the lottery jackpot. In May 1999, Harrell's son discovered his body with a self-inflicted shotgun wound right before he was supposed to sit down with dinner with his ex-wife Barbara Jean. Before he died, he reportedly told a financial advisor, "Winning the lottery is the worst thing that ever happened to me." Number 4. David Lee Edwards, a former drug addict who spent his entire $27 million jackpot within 5 years and ended up living in a storage unit. He was a high school dropout and an ex-convict who robbed a gas station at 26. At the time he purchased that fateful lottery ticket in 2001, he had spent 1/3 of his life behind bars after repeated parole violations, was living on unemployment, and owed child support. His life suddenly changed when he was one of 4 winners of the $280 million Powerball jackpot in August 2001. His share of the jackpot was a one-time lump sum payment of $27 million. At the press conference where he accepted his ceremonial check, Edwards owned up to his past mistakes and portrayed himself as a humble family man who wouldn't go spending everything all at once. Would you believe him when they said that they needed a new Rolls Royce and a Ferrari just a minute later?
Are you sure about that?
At first, Edwards did take the right step by hiring a financial advisor named James Gibbs, who quickly realized that this client was headed for disaster. Once Edwards received that first check, he and his friends went hog wild, immediately turning to the narcotic painkiller OxyContin for instant and dangerous gratification. Gibbs was astonished at how many of his friends overdosed and died, so much so that Edwards would just pay for their funerals. Gibbs could do nothing but stand there and watch and cringe as it all went down. Within a month, he bought a $1.5 million mansion in a gated community in Palm Beach Gardens. Gibbs warned against his frivolous spending that included multiple trips between Kentucky and Florida with an entourage, each private flight costing $8,500 alone. In response, Edwards mocked Gibbs to his friends, laughing at how riled up he could get him. But Gibbs was not laughing. Within 3 months, Edwards had spent $3 million. From afar, things might have actually looked pretty good for Edwards and his family. He and his girlfriend Shauna got married in Maui, and he sent his daughter Tiffany to a nice private school, but his ridiculous spending was getting way out of hand. Neighbors in the gated community complained that his mansion looked like a car dealership with all of the cars sitting out on the front lawn. He had at least $1 million worth of cars on display. He would buy anything expensive if it seemed like just a good deal to him. He had a $78,000 gold and diamond watch on his wrist and a $159,000 ring on his finger. He bought a $600,000 house in Palm Springs, California, a limo company, a $2 million jet, 3 racehorses, and a fiber optics company for $4.5 million. His most infamous purchase is probably his collection of replica medieval weapons, of which he had 200 swords. He estimated he spent $12 million a year after winning the lottery. The valuable items he bought Shauna were being tossed into a black hole to fuel her drug addiction. In one instance, she pawned a $34,000 Rolex she received as a gift to buy more drugs. She was admitted to various drug abuse rehab programs at multiple facilities, and was even found passed out with a needle in her arm at her home on multiple occasions. She was consuming so many OxyContin pills a day that she likely suffered brain damage. The seemingly endless pit of wealth made it so incredibly easy for her to acquire more drugs. At one point, police were even called to their Palm Beach Gardens home in response to a domestic violence report. Shauna had stabbed her husband with a crack pipe and kicked him in the chest. Although he was too numb to get up, he did manage to crawl outside and yell for help. They both contracted hepatitis after repeated drug use. They pleaded guilty to drug possession multiple times, fell into debt, and were evicted from their home. Anytime they would try to sell their possessions to recover some of the money lost, they would spend it all right back in the blink of an eye. All of their possessions were eventually auctioned off, and they were once again evicted, this time from their storage unit. Our number 5 on this list is Abraham Shakepeare, who was murdered for his money after winning $40 million from the Florida lottery in 2006. Like David Lee Edwards, he was a high school dropout who couldn't read, but this time it was his naivety that caused the first domino to fall. Shakepeare and his coworkers stopped at a local convenience store to buy some drinks and cigarettes. The coworker offered to go into the store for them both, and Shakepeare gave his coworker some money to buy some lottery tickets on his behalf while he waited in the car. When Shakepeare won the $40 million jackpot, his coworker immediately accused him of stealing the lottery tickets right from his wallet, and he subsequently took him to court. Thankfully, Shakepeare won, and the liar lost, but from then on he was constantly bothered by strangers looking for handouts. He couldn't discern who his real friends were, and that's when he fell into Dee Dee Moore's trap. Dee Dee Moore was a childhood friend he often confided in, and so Dee Dee asked him to write about his experiences after winning the lottery. It's also important to mention that she offered to manage his money for him. As soon as he agreed to that deal, she began wildly spending his money on herself, buying a Hummer, a Corvette, even his own home. She later claimed that the money she was spending was a gift from him. In 2009, 3 years after he won the lottery, Dee Dee killed Shakepeare and buried his body under concrete slabs at her boyfriend's house. She even went so far as to make it seem like he was alive by sending fake texts from his phone. Relatives immediately got suspicious because they knew that he was illiterate, and those texts did not sound like him at all. She even tried bribing his family to lie and say that they had seen him recently. Eventually, her conflicting stories made it clear that she was somehow involved in his death. She later claimed that she did in fact kill Shakepeare, but it was out of self-defense. Justice was served, and Moore was imprisoned for life with no chance of parole, and an additional 25 years for possession of gun in relation to a violent felony. Before Shakepeare was killed, he said he regretted that winning ticket. Hi everyone, Future Kate here again. Thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give us a like below. It really lets us know that you liked what you saw. Don't forget to also drop a comment below about what you thought about these 5 lottery winners so far. And be on the lookout for our part 2 of this video, and make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on so you can be ready to watch as soon as that comes out. From all of us at Lottery Post, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care.